The nephron is the site of urine formation in the kidney. It filters the blood, produces a filtrate, reabsorbs and secretes substances, concentrates the filtrate, and eventually results in the production of urine. So if we go through these different processes, we'll start off with where the blood is filtered in the first place. Blood enters the nephron by way of the afferent arteriole and reaches the tuft of capillaries known as the glomerulus, and eventually the blood will exit the efferent arteriole. But it is at the site of the glomerulus where filtration takes place. The blood entering this region is under very high pressure, and substances that are small enough can cross the filter, which would include the cells of the glomerulus wall as well as the cells of the Bowman capsule, and move into the hollow portion of the Bowman's capsule. So that would be the process of filtration. What enters the nephron at the Bowman's capsule includes water, electrolytes such as sodium, potassium, calcium ions, bicarbonate ions, as well as amino acids and glucose and vitamins and waste products and even gases. What cannot enter the Bowman's capsule would be large and medium proteins and the formed elements of the blood, including red and white blood cells and platelets. So once we have the filtrate produced, it's going to start working its way along the nephron. The first part of the nephron, beyond Bowman's capsule, is known as the proximal convoluted tubule. And it is at this site where the majority of the reabsorption of substances takes place. So reabsorption means substances move from the lumen of the nephron back into the blood. Surrounding the nephron along its length would be blood vessels known as peritubular capillaries. So it is in this direction that we see reabsorption out of the filtrate back into the blood. The substances that are reabsorbed at the proximal convoluted tubule include water, about 65%, sodium chloride, which would be our salt, about 65% as well, and 100% of amino acids and glucose and many other nutrients. So what we have remaining in the filtrate would be waste products, water, salt, and some other substances. And those substances would continue along down the loop of Henle. And at the loop of Henle, the first part, which we refer to as the descending limb, we see that the cells of the descending limb are permeable to water only, but not to solutes. Water would be reabsorbed along this descending limb of the loop of Henle. Water moves out because the solute concentration in the surrounding interstitial fluid is very high, so water will follow its gradient, moving from an area of low solute to an area of high solute by the process of osmosis. Now with the ascending limb, we see that the cells are not permeable to water, but are instead permeable to salt. So salt can move. So sodium and chloride ions will move out of the filtrate at the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. So when we reach the distal convoluted tubule, we have a lower volume of a more concentrated urine. Okay, so the filtrate here would be at lower volume, but we still have some substances in there that we might want to reabsorb, especially water, so we might see some more reabsorption of that down the road. But definitely a lower volume at this point. Now, that's reabsorption from the filtrate back into the blood. What we need to see now is, what if we reabsorb some substances that we decided we no longer want to keep? We want to eliminate them from the body. So what we see is the process of secretion. And the process of secretion involves taking substances from the blood, those peritubular capillaries, and adding them back into the filtrate. This occurs at the distal and proximal convoluted tubules. And the substances that are secreted include hydrogen ions to regulate pH, potassium ions, which are important for homeostasis and maintaining the resting membrane potential of neurons and muscles, ammonia in the form of ammonium ions, and we'll also see possible secretion of bicarbonate ions to regulate pH as well. So then secretion is the movement of substances from the blood back into the tubules, especially the convoluted tubules. Now our final step is fine-tuning the urine. If we would like to produce a more concentrated urine or a more dilute urine relative to maintaining blood pressure, we see that there are hormones that play a role in this. These hormones act on the distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct. The two hormones are ADH and aldosterone. ADH will cause reabsorption of water back into the peritubular capillaries in order to raise blood pressure, and aldosterone will cause reabsorption of sodium ions, and then water and other ions follow. This also will help to raise blood pressure. So those two hormones are going to be acting on the distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct. ADH to cause water reabsorption, aldosterone to cause sodium reabsorption, and then water and other ions follow. Now one last process that occurs with the kidney tubules, with the nephron, would be the process of concentration. And that's what we saw happening here at the loop of Henle. We concentrate the urine by reabsorbing water and then eventually reabsorbing sodium and chloride ions. So to sum up, we had 4 processes involved in the production of urine. There was filtration, which occurred at the Bowman's capsule and glomerulus. There's reabsorption, the movement of substances back into the surrounding blood vessels. Secretion, where we add substances that we no longer want back in to the filtrate. And finally, concentration, which occurs here at the loop of Henle.